All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to TableTalk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, the Bedluck Gamer, with my co-host Blue Boy.
Hello, it's me.
And my scene is dark. 1 second.
Oh,
and yeah, happy New Year! First New Year stream. Very, very excited to. I got a new. I got a new green screen.
Oh,
So
new green screen, fancy.
Look at my new green screen.
Yeah, it's really cool. You got like some dope Fireball Man. What's that? That's anima art. I know that
That's
art.
anima art. Yeah.
I use that art. That's like the battle between heaven or whatever that fucking event is called.
I think this is the one from Raw's.
Yeah,
Raw's
the
battle.
machine. They're right before the machine was going up and all that.
Yeah. But yeah, welcome. We got a interesting stream, man. The ish that comes up on like Twitter for tabletop, it's crazy. It just keeps popping, and not in the good way necessarily.
It's the gift that keeps on going, because I don't know about you, I think this whole recent one is quite funny, because like I don't see this as like, you know, the shitty annoying discourse where it's like, oh, someone's getting canceled, or oh no, someone did a bad thing, or people are upset for stupid reasons. There's a different one that people are upset for just kind of to be upset sake. They're trying to cause something. And then the other one where it's just like, this is really funny. The difference between the Paizo attempt at a shitstorm and some guy giving a very weird Doom thread.
Yeah. The Paizo hit piece thread is just so like today we're gonna talk about dooming in TTRPGs because it's such a terrible trend that just won't go away. I greatly dislike the constant dooming.
Real quick, I'm gonna mute up. I gotta take a phone call like for a minute.
Also, audience, tell me if the audio for the music is too loud. I can't tell. It looks barely audible on my end, but apparently it's different for y'all, so. But yeah, I guess since Alex is currently doing something on the phone, so I have been a little slow with making content recently. And that's predominantly because I am trying to make new content, if you haven't seen the video. So, that being the case, I'm just taking it slow. I'm taking it a little slow this year. One piece at a time.
One Piece?
You found it? I found the One Piece.
You're actually gonna ship to that style of content?
Music is fine. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's alright. Yeah, I just had to took a quick phone call, mainly because, I guess, small little update, I am going to be running my first tabletop game in like 2.5 years tonight. First session of Vampire, to get a bunch of newer tabletop fans into a game that's actually cool, interesting, and new. and not D&D 5e.
Fair. Yeah, that's also a part of the piece today, but we'll get to that.
I can't wait to talk about that. It's really it is so funny.
In addition, I may have to bounce early, so stream might have to end early because we might have to get our car. So.
Oh, okay, fair. I mean, gives me more time to work on stuff and get everything prepped because character creation in Vampire is a little annoying in person when all you have is all the PDFs and not the physical copies of the book. Though, I gotta say, the Leavenworth tabletop store, the Krampus Cove, has a surprisingly more World of Darkness content there than I would
I've
assume.
never been there. That's probably
It's actually really
new.
cool. No, it's actually really nice. It's a great store. I've been there a bunch. Ever since coming over and living in like the other side of the mountains on Washington. I make a trip over there every once in a while, and they got a great selection, like an actually really interesting tabletop selection. And they have many copies of vampire books and werewolf, the brand new werewolf book. And I skimmed through it, and I gotta say, very good. It is so well laid out, and I'm jealous and annoyed that they didn't do it the same to vampire. That book is atrocious.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, definitely another point of the conversation to have today as well. Also, just talking about the tragic lack of VTM stuff for Foundry. It's very sad.
Yeah, it's very sad, but it's also on the other hand, like what are you gonna do for Foundry? You know, like what you're gonna have a little token with little bite animation?
Give
Like
me
what
the
do you do?
compendium so I can drag powers onto
Oh,
my character sheet.
that's very true. It like just give us the drag and drop rules bit. That's all you really need for Vampire. Though also playing Vampire to VTT, like it is a game that plays perfectly fine just in your head. Like it doesn't need
Yeah,
super
it
hard.
doesn't need a VTT.
It really doesn't. I understand why there's no content for it, but I at least like a rules that like pack out. That's all I want.
Yeah. Official, just let me drag and drop rules so we can just use our abilities and such.
Vampire the Masquerade can be very fun. I think it is a solid game. I have issues with Vampire 5th edition like as a new edition of the game, but I think overall it's very solid.
There's actually a surprising amount of controversy around World of Darkness, like in
100%.
general.
Oh, 100%. It is very interesting to delve into. It's just what happens when a company trade hands a bunch of times. I don't know. Whenever I've read through it, as someone who's read through a lot of vampire content, like a lot of books, I gotta say, it kind of just depends what you want to play. If you want to play a much more like character crunchy game, play Vampire 20th Anniversary because it gives you a lot more like powers and like stuff to do. And then if you want something that just I think has better core mechanics, play 5th edition. I think 5e has way better core systems than the other Vampire games.
But yeah, so I've been working on some content. I have some good ideas for new content. I actually think I'm gonna do a how to play series where
nice.
I do like a very I want to do a very casual friendly how to play of like games in general, like how to do this period, and then just do the most like fun and clean but also like kind of silly breakdown of various games, like how to run Pathfinder, explaining, you know, you have 3 actions. If you're a martial character, you're just gonna run up, hit someone in the face 2 times. Good job, good marshaling, that kind of stuff.
You're a mage. You cast a spell and then you proceed to stand there. You will never use your 3rd action. Someone who plays with magic characters.
There's a bunch of stuff, and it's gonna be a very fun exercise of doing casual content for someone who doesn't do very casual content typically. Like, it's pseudo casual because it's easy to understand, but it's not casual in the sense of like it's not Dummy's Guide level of like casual how to do stuff, you know.
Yeah.
There's just a big problem with the TTRPG scene in general, where a lot of people are talking to you like you know how to play the game.
Exactly. That's the problem. It's all this presumed knowledge, and then I'm sitting there like, what the fuck is any of this? What are you talking about? This is some nerd shit. And then I click away and watch something else.
Yeah. So I want to make something that's very easy for anyone to watch and like understand what's going on. Other than that, we'll be resuming with more Lancer and more Pathfinder builds. I'm just gonna spend the first few months of this year experimenting as much as possible, because as soon as I think it's March, I can't remember what book comes out first this year from Pathfinder. It's either Howl of the Wild or maybe even the Monster book. Let's see. Howl of the Wild comes out in May. Monster Core comes out March. Monster Core is what comes out in March. So I'll be talking about the Monster Core early March. Be looking at the new dragons and all kinds of new stuff.
I'm very excited for the new dragons. I think the new dragons, like already the bits we've learned, they sound really cool because they're based off of like magic types now, right? Not
and
colors.
Other things as well.
In other things, that's the part where I'm like, oh hell yeah, because like, you know, we've seen the D&D type dragons for so long. I want people to be unique with it, and also this means that what Pathfinder's gonna give us lich dragons, which
Probably
hell yeah,
yeah.
I want undead dragons very bad. They're so cool, as we learned in Elden Ring.
I will also be doing some videos on why you should play so-and-so game, where it's just where I talk enthusiastically about the cool things in games without going too much in depth because I'm a nerd for rules. And I'm like, this mechanic is so cool.
So you know what we could do? Well, here's a fun little idea. Whenever you're gonna start doing the one on Lancer, let me know. Give me some heads up. I will work on my Lancer introduction video as well, the introduction to the lore, and release them at the same time, and then we can push it to like, hey, if you want to actually learn about the game itself and the rules, go check out this video, and then you can go, hey, if you want to learn a lot more about the lore and like the general concept of the universe, check out this video.
That's a good idea. Yeah. We also have our April Fool's video to work on this year. It's gonna be
fun. We'll set that up. Mine's gonna be relatively easy. I can get that out, and I will have a lot of fun with it. I just gotta like script it out a little. I'm excited for that. I think I want to camp in that comment section so bad.
Yeah. So yeah, we got a lot of fun things coming out this year, and then of course for those of you, because when I said I was going to be working on some more casual friendly, there's so many people in the comments who are just like, no, I like the deep content. Don't stop. The deep content's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's not a replacement. It's a supplement.
Yeah, it's more of just like me filling out my schedule to have more types of content to also apply to a bigger core audience. Like the amount of people I have in now the Discord as well as in the comments being like, I just come for the Lancer content. It's kind of nice.
It's very nice to see. I appreciate those people because it's like I'm happy that it isn't just like Pathfinder and all, because Lancer deserves that love. I'm happy that it's got that much of a pull. Also, Lancer rules, and I want more people around us that talk about Lancer.
Yeah, and Edwin, that stuff's gonna be more reserved for reviews of like actual reviews. The kind of content I'm making is more of a hype piece to get people into the games in the first place. And one thing about any kind of advertising is, unless legally demanded, you only focus on the good aspects of whatever it is that you're doing. If people want a good like pros and cons, then they should go check out something that's more of a full review, which I will plan to do actually full reviews. I already have like a full review of Pathfinder. Pathfinder's actually the first one I'm gonna do some content on. Just one, because I've been kind of slacking on Pathfinder content since November. I kind of got burned out after the remaster. But two, it's just I think the system that I have the most knowledge and mastery on, and I can just kind of go from there.
It's the easiest, I think, for you to like break down in those terms, especially the terms of for people who aren't well versed in tabletop, since you know that system like so immensely.
Mm-hmm. But Lancer will be coming up after that, and then I'll probably even do like Vampire 5e stuff along with a review, which that review is going to be scathing in at least the book setup, the book organization, because that book is atrocious.
It genuinely has one of the worst core books I've ever experienced. And then like the problem is you're like the core book is written so poorly, but the core rules are really good. And then you also going back and reading the older books, you're like, ah damn, this formatting and like the art and everything about it's beautiful, but I don't like this humanity lore. Humanity used to be really simple of a mechanic. It was just,
Yeah.
what, oh, killed somebody, take that pip away, and it was like very basic and bare bones. And then now it's like, oh, and here's every humanity level that also interacts with like your character sheet and how certain like things are approached. And it's like, oh, this is really cool. Because I think Brush of Life is a 5e thing as well. I did not see it in Vampire 20th, which
Yeah,
is I think Vampire 20th is a codified 3rd edition.
I'd have to see. I don't know actually that much about it, to be honest, but
If you need the PDFs, I can provide. I have the 20th anniversary book, and it is a great book. It is so cool. I love the
yeah,
art
well,
style.
I have the 20th edition now too.
Yeah,
So.
oh yeah, because I sent you that just to be
Yeah.
like, look what we could have had. Look at what the
Yeah.
organization is.
I've never
It's
seen
so
a
easy.
I've never seen a book get so in way of the game
Yes,
ever
like genuinely.
as 5th edition. It's actually tragic.
I think it would be more popular if the book was better. Like I think it's kind of like that situation. How many people like bought that book, read through it, and like, oh my god, and then just never played it?
Yeah.
Like, is this what people like do?
I mean,
I'm gonna
we're like what 7 sessions in or something on the channel,
yeah.
and I still don't have a full grasp of the game.
It's so bad that like somebody released his own PDF, which is a great PDF by the way. I think I shared it around. That has like here's all the actual rules you need in like a play by like a normal session of a game, and it's so helpful. It's really handy. It lays it out, and it's like, hey, here's a page that has literally every rule for combat.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's there's a lot of things. We had to flip through the book a ton in a session, which is not good.
No,
So
that's bad. Like, I think it is. It's so easily avoidable. They just
it
need a
is.
better book. And then the worst part is that they're publishing books that have better fucking organization. Because I think even the Hunter book does it better. Like, it's just they did their first run and they're like, it's fine.
They learned
Also,
just a little too late.
the fucking the character guide book is a little better. I still think it's a little rough, but it's better. But it's a little rough because I think the general art direction for 5e Vampire is just kind of bad. I'm not a fan of the weird like AI art / like live action art style they go for.
Yeah, I will have to say I don't think it's actually AI art because
There's some that I feel like it has to be. Like the
I
hands
actually
and stuff
don't
weird.
because when did 5th edition come out?
Good question. It was published 2021.
2021?
Yeah, that was when 5e came out.
Crazy, because I remember doing something similar to this way back in the day. Huh. Very similar in a lot of ways, even the art style. It's very interesting. Anyway, maybe then. That's possible. But yeah, so this actually is kind of a really good segue. So the main piece, what we're talking about today, how VTTs are saving TTRPGs. I know a lot of people hate this point. I know a lot of people hate this point. I know a lot of people also fully agree with this point. And I understand somewhat the division. So why I make this claim is VTTs bring to the table a much more accessible way to engage with TTRPGs in general. It's faster to make character sheets. It's faster to run games, to calculate damage, to do all kinds of things. And even in some situations, depending on the VTT, it actually can help clarify rules because, the team that makes the game, or they'll have someone like go help with the VTT stuff to kind of help program it so everything works right. You might actually learn something different based on how the game actually runs that way. So it offers a lot of things that we don't normally get. And this in turn opens up VTTs in general to letting more people get to these games without needing to do a whole bunch of homework ahead of time. I mean, your first session runs really easy when you ask a player to make an attack roll, they make an attack roll, and then they hit damage, and that's it. No one has to do any math or anything. Like, one of the things I find super funny about how people differentiate some of the systems is how bad the math is in the game. Like, whether it's simple addition or whether you need to use multiplication or division in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but what if a system did it for you? Then that kind of removes that barrier at all, because the players don't even have to do it. So why do people hate this? Because people feel like it makes players dumber. They feel... Go ahead.
I can see that. Like, there's definitely that point of people who think, like, there's just a lack of system mastery for people who use, like, automated stuff. And also, I think a lot of it is also just the holdover for people who, they really like pen and paper style. They want to get together in a room with their friends, have everything physical, and, like, the idea that that could go away one day is scary and bad. Which, don't get me wrong, I prefer in-person tabletop a lot. And also, like, whenever we're playing a game, except if it's, like, a very strictly VTT-centered thing, I usually have a physical character sheet in front of me because I do not like dealing with a lot of digital sheets, or I just like having it tangible in front of me. It feels nicer. But also, like, there's one bit when we were talking about last night when we were really chatting about a lot of the current discussions that are happening on tabletop. There's a quote from a game designer I really like. I want to read the part of these tweets at least. Where game designer and like game director Josh Sawyer, who's most known for Fallout New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity, the early Fallout games, just Fallout New Vegas and Icewind Dale. Like, he's the director and lead designer of a lot of those games, and mainly he has a very positive take on VTTs. Like, I think VTTs make it way easier to play unfamiliar mechanical systems than ever before, and how playing VTTs allowed me to play games I'd likely would never have had the players for, Ars Magica 5e, and introduce players who were averse to learning new mechanics, Cyberpunk Red, because VTT handled so much for them. It's never been easier to play TTRPGs, IMO. Someone also asked, like, would you have the same response to someone who would claim that VTTs ruin the community because no one actually has to interact with the rules as they would pen and paper? For the record, I agree, but it's something I thought I read a while ago and wanted your thoughts. Joshua Sawyer's response was, I stated before that VTTs do eliminate the need to learn rules, but I'm neutral to positive on it. It clearly introduces way more players to more systems, and in the balance, depending on the system, rules mastery is not often the point. Which I completely agree with. Like, he completely sums up my take on VTTs as well.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's a better question of, with the people who play dumb, because they don't want to learn the rules and they just use the automated systems from VTTs, would those people have changed their minds if someone had approached them with the pen and paper version? And I feel like the answer predominantly is no.
No.
They just wouldn't engage with it.
As someone who's played with players like that, even for very simple games, no. That someone who is frankly incurious and does not want to learn a game, and just likes the general idea of playing a tabletop game, they're not going to master a system because you put a piece of paper and some dice in front of them. They're going to continually ask you, even a year down the line, how do I make an attack roll?
Yeah. I experienced that firsthand at Adventures League too.
Yes. We've both experienced it a good amount.
And conversely, right, is the easy access to a VTT preventing anyone from diving in and looking into the system. And I will also say no, because you know why? Our Discord is massively filled all the time with people chatting about interesting ideas, asking about rule questions, all that kind of stuff. A lot about Pathfinder, which is one of the most accessible TTRPG games you can get, where, you know, they do a lot of that stuff for you. So, that being the case, no, when someone is interested in something, they're going to sit at home, they're going to look up builds, they're going to hop on Archive and Nethys or whatever, you know, and they're going to look into it. And when they have questions, yeah, they're going to ask you. But like, players before VTTs even existed would ask the DM all the time, how does this work? How does this work? How does this work? So
even before VTTs, it would be on forums. If you want to ever go down some rabbit holes, like find a weird niche game that you enjoy. One in our instance that I know we've both looked at is any question about Anima Beyond Fantasy, and go down a little rabbit hole of some strange forum you've never heard of, as people are discussing builds and rules interactions they found.
yeah, and this kind of passed by quickly for everyone, so I'll read what Dead Phoenix said here. My SOT group, I'm not sure what that one is for, something of something, is mostly newbies, and after, I want to say, over 6 months, most of them still don't know shit about the game without me hand-holding them, it feels like. On the other hand, the group I've been in for a decade now is mostly made up of people who have only played on VTTs, including myself, excluding one session of AD&D, who pick up on shit very quickly, which, with a much older, more complicated VTT in Pathfinder 1st Edition, it's all in the individual person. So yeah, it's, for anyone who says VTTs is preventing Strength of Thousands, I see. For anyone who complains that VTTs make players dumb, are gatekeeping. Plain and simple. They are... I used to know this guy. Like, this guy, very nice guy. He wanted to game... Like, he bought me so many games so we could play together. And he had the best intentions, but he was a gaming elitist. And when he invited me to come play a game and we played a game together, it was the most awkward time I ever had, because when we got in, and it's kind of like a Terraria style game.
Is it Factorio?
No. That's
okay,
definitely not a Terraria style game anyway. So.
It's kind of Terraria if you think about it.
Not even.
If you change the camera position,
then yeah, that changes the whole dynamic of the game, sure.
Yeah, you change the camera, the core mechanics, the goal of the game. It's kind of like Terraria.
Mm-hmm. He refused to do anything. He's just like, if you want me to do something, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'll just follow you around. That's it. He didn't want to play with me. It's more like he wanted to watch me play. And I'm just like, because he didn't want to ruin anything for me. He didn't want to do anything for me. He wanted me to figure it out myself, you know? And, like, this was his mentality with all gaming in general. Like, he was just like, I hate games that give players tutorials because it removes the act of learning. To be fair, I don't like tutorials, and I wish tutorials were more optional in games. Because sometimes...
I just wish they were... Oh, go on.
Well, sometimes I just want to figure a game out myself, you know?
True. I always like how FromSoft games do it, where they have, especially Elden Ring. I really like how Elden Ring does it. It's just like, go forward into the world or go down this very optional, very like, honestly non-consequential tutorial area, and then it's just like read these little notes that just tell you the buttons and what they do, and then they give you like a small little area. It's like, oh, I can test this parry out on this guy. I like that. That is, I basically just let me know if there are any weird button interactions that I have to know about. Or also another one, actually, a good tutorial. I just wish they were better designed. Against the Storm has a fantastic tutorial system. My idea is they introduce you a new mechanic, and then basically they drop you in a free-form little city builder, and they're like, all right, you have complete how this goes. Like, you can place things wherever you want. We're just going to give you pop-ups to tell you what stuff does. It's like, thank you. This helps me so much.
Yeah.
I learned a lot, like a lot more than other city builders than I have from like with that game. Whenever they introduced a new complicated mechanic, I picked it up pretty quickly because of that.
Yeah, and I agree. Tutorials are good. That's why I hate this idea from gaming elitist style players who are like, the players should learn the game. They should know and they should figure it out themselves. It's just like, sometimes it's nice to just get handheld a little bit. Like, you start off in a VTT where the game is somewhat automated for you. So then you don't slow the game down by trying to learn it, but you can learn it, as the game is going. Like, you can look many VTTs. If you highlight your role, it'll tell you exactly what went into the role, so you can figure that out that way. And as Josh Sawyer, right? That's his name?
Yeah, Josh Sawyer.
Said, it's not the point to have system mastery. When you play something like Vampire the Masquerade, the point isn't to learn the system mastery to min-max your character really strong. It's a narrative game. And the best character you can play is the most narratively interesting character you can play. And genuinely, honestly, to me, that's kind of the thing in most TTRPGs, is the most narratively interesting character is typically the best. Granted, in games like Pathfinder, you can have some really fun builds, and that even can lean into the narrative. But, you have to figure out the system for that.
Yeah, there are games and, like, methods of play that 100%, like, knowing the game is important, like, and mastering it is part of the fun and the experience. But, like, I don't know, the point of a game is to have fun. So, like, the point isn't to become an expert and walk away and be like, I understand everything, I can min-max it. It's, you walk away from a session going, oh, that was a great time. Remember when this happened? Oh, when you did that thing, it was so cool. Oh, that line you gave was so dope. Like, that's the fun of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, when you play the coolest character and have the coolest story moments, that's irrelevant to mechanics more often than not, 100%. Usually it's just random bullshit that happens. Player rolls a nat 20, or a player just has a giga-brain idea that happens, a variety of other things. It's why I strongly feel that, like, tabletop as it currently is developing is something that is going in the right direction to make it open to as many people as possible. Because, if someone buys your game and doesn't play it, that's still money that company makes that can go to future projects, or just paying the people who made the game in the first place, So I don't mind, even in the worst case scenario, even taking the worst interpretation, right, of these games are intentionally making people dumb using VTTs. I'll take a bunch of dumb people playing the game I like, so that the company sees that's profitable and then makes more content for it.
Yeah. I mean, also, like, I don't know, VTT, I like your point that playing these VTTs help you gain this, like, knowledge by automating it. Mainly because I think our experience with Lancer really sets that home. When we switched over to Foundry and started using a lot of the Foundry stuff, oh my god, that game felt way more fun. Like, so dope. Because, like, I understand how to make an attack roll. I understand the dice. It is significantly more fun to have a little token, shoot at another token, make a thing, and then see everything play out. It turns it into, like, a game. And the automation feels fun. I love how it works. It builds that tension. Like, I remember having a lot of fun in that moment where I'm playing as my Rayleigh, dodge tanking 2 artillery mechs that are, like, raining down, like, on me. A big explosion goes on my token, and then I see a fat miss in the log. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Every time. It felt great. It felt better than if, I don't know, I'm just looking at a little paper map, and a grid is like roll, pause to, like, add the number. Okay, you didn't get hit. It felt better, and like I feel like I could run play an in-person Lancer game, be completely proficient in it. But the VTT experience, I think, got all of us way more into it, and I think learned the system a little better and faster.
Yeah, it's TTRPGs are just going into a much more open and casual space, and I feel like a lot of people are really uncomfortable with people joining their hobby that they for years kind of vilified, you know? The kinds
Yeah,
of
that's
people
a big thing.
who are just like, these people thought we were dumb playing this game, so I don't want them to play with me anymore. When that's not the case most of the time anyway. It's only, a handful of people. And it's something that's extra personified in a hilarious tweets that everyone has been bashing
Yes,
on this whole
yes,
time. Alex has been waiting for this part.
yes. It's so funny.
So, Alex, I'll let you open this up for us. What was this tweet about? What was so terrible
Okay.
about it?
All right, let me quickly also pull up my Twitter so I can be looking at it directly. I wouldn't want to misrepresent the dumb point that this guy is making. Specifically, a thread came out by what is apparently a being called a D&D historian and tabletop historian, saying that the golden age of tabletop games is dead. It's a long thread. It's like maybe like a 15-minute full read if you're really going through it. The main thesis of the thread is that because 5th edition D&D is losing some player base, the popularity is going down, the golden age of tabletops is dead. Also because of all these other companies coming in, making games, and they're doing well in the market. That is the central point of the game, or of the thread, is conflating the entire tabletop market to the fact that people are moving away from 5th edition and not designing more 5e compatible games, and that Paizo is out here making, Pathfinder not D&D, or Critical Role isn't doing D&D anymore, which they still are, but yeah. So
Yes, I will link the tweets in the Discord.
yes,
I'll put that in the table talk.
it is very funny. Also, the final little nail in the coffin that I really like is how the final thread, the final post in this thread says that what is the solution to this problem of factionalization because other games are doing decently well in the market finally? Well, the real solution could be to make one giant tabletop system instead of having all these separate games.
One unified system.
That kills me. But also just saying that because D&D is making less money, no, there aren't going to be any more games with unique mechanics and interesting design decisions. And then specifically also makes a very weird point, making a big huff about like, there's games that are using D6s. It's like, what? Yeah.
By the way, it's 58 tweets.
Yes. It it is long. It is a long thread, and a lot of people are purely making fun of it, or people who are like, what? Good. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, this is just an example of someone who doesn't want to lose their tabletop, their game. They want 5th edition to keep coming out with new stuff. They must have creamed their jorts at the idea of one D&D, the universal D&D system going forward that WotC blocked back because that's a terrible idea.
Terrible.
And this is like the core of the idea around like why people hate the idea of VTTs. There's people who just hate VTTs in general, which is such a crazy thing considering it's most of how most people play the game nowadays, because they just don't live in the same town as their friends.
Also, I'll say for the chat, for you, Dead Phoenix, I, as someone who is pretty well versed on quickly sussing out if something is satire and bait on Twitter, I've been on Twitter for too long. This guy has basically, I think, muted everything on Twitter because his shit blew up. I do believe this is purely unironic in his actual opinion, because the only like that he has done recently is someone saying, I don't agree with a lot of the points, but it's interesting to think about. And it's like, if this was satire, this guy would be replying to a lot more people, doubling down as a joke. That is what those bait posts are for. They're to get engagement, and then they get more engagement. And the prior posting of this guy is purely like someone who is like relatively small but still kind of well known for doing good like tabletop journalism. So I think this is legit, and it is significantly funnier because I think it's legit.
Apparently he wrote a book.
Interesting.
And yeah, he seems to be going to a lot of data on a variety of things, which I would have to like break everything down to see whether or not any of this is valid. Considering the amount of research done in the dog water point that came out of it, I don't think a lot of this is anywhere near like accurate, especially because like a lot of this is like various sales on stuff. Wizards didn't release like a lot of sales information actually.
No.
So
I think they're a closed company. They're not open trade. Are they?
I think
like
so,
I don't think we
yeah.
can see it.
So yeah, no, this is pretty
So
legit.
we can see Hasbro performance and revenue, because Hasbro is a publicly traded company. Wizard of the Coast is not, is privately owned. So they can release stuff if they want, but we cannot get the direct numbers on how well they're doing.
Yeah, and if you read his like account profile, D&D historian extraordinaire, friend of humanity, animal and werewolf alike. Buy my griddle hot D&D history here.
I don't know, man. If your history is just like weird doom posting and conflating the entire industry to a single game, it's you know what? It's also I did fact check this right before. Before our table talk, I knew we'd be mentioning it at least. So I brought it up with my partner, just like, hey, I'm gonna tell you about something that's getting really big right now on Twitter. I want to hear your thoughts on it, specifically because they are not like super deep into tabletop as we are. We're gonna play a game and like, you know, all that, but they're not as deep in the news and the drama. So I just started telling them what the thread was about. In the moment, just talking about like, yeah, the golden age is over because of this, and then like seeing their face like that confusion look and like
yeah.
huh? What? And the immediate like, okay, yeah, this is dumb to everybody. Cool, I'm happy.
The golden age, I hate the golden age of tabletop because it's something that people keep bringing up, and it's so incredibly biased every time someone brings it up.
There's no fucking metric. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Anyway, Muffin Hydra, we're talking about Ben Riggs, also at @BenRiggs_. I've linked it in the Discord. Alex can link it in the chats, actually.
I will do that real quick.
The tweet link we're talking about. Well, what we're generally talking about is like VTTs and kind of old guard versus new guard. And this ridiculous tweet talking about how moving away from D&D is actually hurting the tabletop industry because we're no longer fueling a mega giant, and thus, you know, no more trickle-down economics to everything else. You know, it's funny. I made a video kind of about this point, but very different.
Yeah, you made a video that's like, it's good that this is popular, which I believe it is a good thing that 5e is like the top dog, and like it genuinely does have, there is metrics showing people getting into D&D and then getting into other games. Like that's very true. The difference is that you're not sitting there conflating like, oh no, the industry is ruined because less people are interested in 5th edition. That wasn't your
No.
point. Your point was like about the other benefits of just 5e being the top dog and that popular and having that much money behind it. There's a
Yeah.
different core point, but like you brought up some of the same evidence.
Yeah, because like I wholeheartedly believe if D&D went away today, it would actually be hugely destructive for the TTRPG scene in general.
I agree. I think that it's doing good being that popular. I would like it to, you know, be less popular. I don't want it to be the giant monopoly, but I think that it probably will stay the top, absolute, like, top of the mountain that other companies will just get closer to. I don't think anyone will ever like overreach it anytime soon, but
Not in our lifetime, in the
no.
very least. I mean, like my ideal scenario is it gets so bloated and it gets so cancerous, and by the time so many people are super invested in the scene anyway, and it's already shown to be just toxic, people are already trying out other stuff anyway, and you know, then even though it might still be the biggest, a lot of people are elsewhere. But
Yeah, and then the other other good part is that, you know, whenever D&D 6th edition actually comes out, what it could just be a genuinely good game, and then it introduces people to like cool mechanics that maybe other games do, where people are like, oh, this little mechanic they're doing, it's actually like pretty similar to this game, which it goes a little deeper on, and then, you know, spreads it a little differently. But like, imagine it could just be good, and then we're like, oh, hell yeah, just new tabletop game on the market, let's go. Which is always fun. It's always fun when just a good game releases.
yeah, that's the other golden age. I love people who are like the 90s golden age of tabletop, where it's exactly like Devin says here, where everything was niche. You waited years for expansions and relied solely on people to drive and make it a fun game.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's really true. Because like the other takeaway I had from this thread is the whole idea that like the golden age of tabletop is ending because other tabletop games are making money and getting like people to enjoy them. Doesn't that signal that it's starting the golden age of tabletop? Isn't that what that means? That just means the golden age of 5th edition is over, and then the industry is going to do better because of it, right? Like that's what that sounds like.
It's
Just making me go crazy. I was just fascinated by it. It was so fucking weird and funny to me. I kept
Alex.
reading it.
He had to send. He just randomly he's just like, "Hey, we got we gotta talk about this."
I was
we
obsessed with
chatted
it.
about it. It was super funny.
I was so obsessed with it. It's just okay. I might have been like talked with this on Table Talk. It comes up. It's also come up purely in the stuff with us doing like covering Candle Obscura and people getting upset. I am really fascinated when I find something I read and I'm like, that's really stupid, or I'm like, that's really weird. You believe this? My immediate thought is, okay, I want to genuinely know your thought process. I want to know, do you believe this unironically? Is there nuance? What's happening here? So I delve really hard into it to try to like pick it apart. And I've been picking it apart, and all I can find is like, this is just stupid. This is so dumb. This is the goofiest shit I've ever read. So we had to. If it wasn't the topic, I'd find a way to force it in.
I mean, it kind of just plays into the general topic in general. I mean, that unfortunately last year kind of closed out with this whole TTRPGs are changing and I don't like it kind of mentality from a lot of people. And like, there's also just this very terrible trend of when TTRPGs have finally started getting like general public notice, we got hit by the doomers kind of controversy for the sake of controversy takes on all kinds of stuff. Hi Gray, how you doing? That like there's a channel I absolutely hate where every other video has in the title or in the thumbnail, and it just got worse. And it
Yeah, that
talks,
exact style of fucking video. Ugh.
the channel talks nothing of substance. There was like, they made a video, their biggest video, the one that got the most views, was Critical Role getting sued, right? In that video, and what come of it, nothing of the sort, not even close. Just a bunch of hearsay and people talking about nonsense.
Yeah, I remember that situation. It was just a giant nothing burger. Like nothing was happening, and then people were like, "Oh fuck yeah, finally!"
And that is the trend. I mean, unfortunately, as much as I like the work that Stephen Gleicher and Mark Seifter do, uh, Roll for Combat mostly just has live streams dooming about D&D. It's very unfortunate. We don't say that name here,
Yeah.
Muffin Hydra.
Oh, is that who it is?
It is, that is who it is.
I've never heard of them, but I will not watch them now. That sounds annoying.
It's really funny to go through their videos and see just how many say, and it just got worse.
So the other bit when you were bringing this up, I have 3 fucking YouTube accounts in my head that do the exact same shit to Warhammer 40K, or just Warhammer and Games Workshop in general, talking about how everything Games Workshop does is like it's the swan song. It's over for Warhammer, like completely. The hobby is dead. There's a video I can point at that is a oh, did I actually? No, okay. It is a giant like 40-minute video breaking down the Space Marine 2 reveal trailer, and it somehow extends a 3-minute trailer to 40 minutes talking about how the game's going to be bad because of stuff like Space Marine beats a Tyranid in sword combat. That doesn't happen. And then later, the Space Marine looks really weak to the Tyranid. That's lore inaccurate, like contradicting himself. But it's just a thing. Or the people who are directly like, it's over, this thing is done, this thing failed, and then you look at the publicly traded information of the company you're looking into, and you're like, this is the most profitable quarter that they've had in earnings. Games Workshop is one of the most profitable British-ran companies. What are you talking about that AOS is absolutely killing money? Like, what are you saying? And it's just on the benefit of it, it means that tabletop is finally big enough to have the doomsayers that every other hobby and like fandom has. Congrats, tabletop! You finally have, or tabletop, you finally have it.
Yeah, but that's the problem. Is like a lot of the rise to the prominence of people actually talking about it. You know, that's not D&D related. Let's not say that like YouTube didn't have tabletop related content. It was D&D content, you know.
Yes.
But TTRPG content has mostly been on the niche. If you exclude D&D from it, you wouldn't see a lot that kind of blew up. Well, that's changing, but now for the worse, because it's mostly doomsaying, you know, like 9 times out of 10. And it's something that I personally worry about as something of people are just not going to understand what is going on in TTRPGs because there's so many information gaps and they keep seeing all these controversies. And there's so many people who got dissuaded from looking or even trying Candela Obscura because all they heard from people was that it was just a worse version of another game. Because honestly, would you, like, if you were about to buy a product in a store that you knew nothing about, and someone's like, oh, that's actually just like a worse version of this thing over here, you would be like, sure, yeah, I have no investment in this, so I don't care, really. Just give me the better product, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think this is a prominent enough thing in every other industry, and at the point where it's not really destroying everything else, and like the other things are doing fine.
I'm not saying it's going to kill the industry.
No,
I don't think the point.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to have that bad of an impact. I think it's just what happens, sadly, because every single medium has this. I mean, I've been hearing it endlessly about film as well. When then it's just like, it's the same people who are also like, man, 2023 probably the worst year for games. All these games are just like shitty knockoffs and remakes. When then you're looking at like, are you only talking about like COD and FIFA? What are you talking about? Like
Well,
2023 has been insane.
yeah, but see, that's not even the point. I'm not saying that controversy isn't like a thing that everyone has to deal with. I'm saying that the rise of TTRPGs is mostly doomsaying content. All these other things, movies, video games, whatever, they've had histories before of people like being interested, talking about it, the like. Video games didn't become prominent because we started talking about M ratings and video games making people violent. Video games got popular and then people started talking about it. The TTRPG scene doesn't have that. And again, I don't know. I don't know what the actual effect is. Because who knows? We live in such a weird age where something that used to be super niche is now becoming popular and kind of like everyone is starting to interact with it. But as everyone is starting to interact with it, if it's not D&D content, it's doomsaying content about what it is, And I think it just is confusing for a lot of people where we don't have a very strong information network like many things have. Like we used to have like G4 for video games, back in the day. We just don't have that nowadays,
I think it depends too, because I at least am of the opinion that like the people I see doing a lot of the doomsaying content, the people I see absorbing said content are usually those who have been in the hobby for a while, because that's at least how it works in 40K. It's people who got really into it, and then like a thing, Games Workshop did a thing, which happened relatively recently with their fan content policy changing and removing a bunch of stuff. And then a lot of people shimmy over to the doomsaying and be like, it's over, it's dead, and now their entire like attitude online is shitting on it and saying how it's dead because they kind of want to like manifest it into reality. That's a lot of the stuff I see. But then meanwhile, when I look at the people who are just genuinely into it and enjoy the thing and have a healthy life outside of pure absorbing the internet, like I'm friends with a decent number of people in my area who play tabletop games, a couple of them ranging from like, oh yeah, they play like D&D, to a couple of my friends who are like, oh yeah, we play like a lot of really weird, interesting games. We tried a bunch of stuff all the time. And then I bring up like, oh, did you see this one thing, like the whole OGL business? And I'm like, huh? What are you talking about?
I mean, I find that ridiculous because even Moist Critical spoke about the OGL nonsense.
I don't know. I've chatted with people in like my friend group who I was like, do you hear about the OGL? And then they're like, huh? And they play D&D every week. They play like one of them, the group, they even play like fucking Pathfinder 2nd edition and all that. And I was like, yeah, it was the OGL. And they're like, oh fuck, Wizards of the Coast, that sucks. And it's just because they just don't engage.
That's purely anecdotal. That does.
It is, but like I don't think that a bunch of people are absorbing purely all their tabletop content through doomsaying. I think it's people who are deep enough in the hobby that I don't think it's going to like dissuade everyone from doing it. The one I do agree is annoying and will dissuade people is specifically that example of, oh, don't play this, it's like a worse version of this, pick this instead, because that has 100% happened to me. I had that happen to me with being fully dissuaded from ever trying out Starfinder, because I was told Starfinder is shit, and then here's a better sci-fi game, and it was a 5e compatible thing. Like, I've literally had that happen to me, and I believe that, and that's happened with people with Candle Obscura. I just don't think that, like, I don't know, a YouTube channel that milks controversy is stopping people from like delving into stuff in the hobby.
Again, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't know what the possible damages are. I'm saying that when you have something that is having, a very negative air to it more often than not, what are people who are even interested in tabletop supposed to do? Yeah, sure, some of them might not heard of it. And Dead Phoenix, yeah, Moist Critical himself is terminally online. True. That's not the point. The point is his audience more often than not aren't. But he speaks to hundreds, if not millions of people every week. So even when he talks about it, that exposes a lot of people to that information. How much they care about it, it's hard to say. but it's this thing of, if you wanted to get into like a hobby group and you heard that that hobby group has a lot of drama going on, that feels a bit dissuasive to getting involved, you know. When it's like, hey, I want to get into D&D, and you tell someone about it, and then they instantly hop on they instantly, you know, inundate this person with, have you heard about the Pinkertons and all this kind of stuff, you know? Or have you heard about WotC using AI art, which the most recent case wasn't even true, you know? Like, because we're so many people are obsessed with it, people are going to be exposed to it whether they want to or not. A few anecdotal situations isn't really good evidence against something like this happening. And as someone who looks at, you know, comments and Twitter and hearing people about getting into the hobby all the time, a lot of people get this kind of stuff, you know. Maybe it's not anyone you know, but it does happen. I don't know what degree it is. I don't even know what the damage is. All I'm saying is that it's a very auspicious thing when your favorite hobby is finally becoming, you know, like generalized, where people are engaging with it more often. And yet the majority of general news, like, I'm looking for news in tabletop, good or bad, you know, and I'm finding mostly negative. Then what are people who are not looking at it more likely to run into, you know? Like,
Yeah, I guess the other
info.
I guess the other bit is, oh my god, I was looking for specifically a thing to reference, and this is so funny. Every thumbnail's the exact fucking same. But the reason I also don't think that there's any issue, because I found basically what you're referencing with that annoying, oh my god, the name is so similar.
Yeah.
Instead of Dungeon Discourse, it's Discourse Minis.
Yeah.
Every thumbnail is just hand on head. But anyways.
Yeah, same thing as the other one.
Literally, it's literally that. The reason I don't think it's going to cause that big of a problem in the future is mainly because, like, what I'm seeing is the exact same thing that's with 40K. Because, like, 40K also is just general Warhammer. Was relatively niche, popular, like, it's the most popular war game in the market. And then it's starting to be a lot more mainstream. Henry Cavill, like, TV show, big video games that are coming out that are actually good. All of that. It's being discussed very openly in channels, even like on public TV, like with Henry Cavill again. And then I also see, like, the majority of the news, like the new stuff that's coming out for Warhammer, is the videos of the Games Workshop just fucked up again. The stocks are going down. The new reveal is a scam, like things like that. But the hobby's going strong still, and every time, like, Warhammer's getting more and more people in the hobby every year. They're making more and more money, putting out more and more stuff. Like, I just see the same situation, like, occurring with tabletop games, and it's like, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, but see,
I don't think it's going to be that bad.
We're still talking on a very difference of scale. Because Warhammer channels, you know, they can range in size, but there's a very healthy amount in the 100K plus size of content creators, which means they have pretty decent audience sizes. Tabletop outside of D&D, I can name maybe a few that have over 100K.
Guess it depends which, like, specific, like, tabletop doomsaying channels, because a lot of the 40K ones range from around, like, 30,000 to, like, 100,000 subs, and then they average around the same amount of views.
Well, yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, but there are 100, 200K size Warhammer channels that can talk to a large audience. The general tabletop outside of D&D doesn't really have that. There's not really people you can go to for that kind of stuff. It's mostly all D&D, and we've already seen how big D&D channels talk about other games like Pathfinder, for instance.
They do that a lot, yeah. Which then the only crossover I have is there's a really weird hate boner for AOS, like Age of Sigmar in 40K, like, just doing kind of the same thing of, like, I tried out AOS, and here's, like, this is all the stuff about it, and here's way longer all the stuff I don't like about it. It's like, interesting. Like the same deal, sadly. It's just like, though I will say there's a lot of very big D&D YouTubers that are like, here's my thoughts of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and a lot of detail of how they think it's worse than 5e.
Yeah, and that's, again, this is my problem. It's all scale. It's all reach, you know. The Warhammer community has way more reach than general tabletop does. Like, we can see even from our channels, your channel grew so much faster than mine did in your first year, you know. And I put out way more content in my first year.
Sure, I only do like 2 videos a week.
So, you know, and that's not like a comparison. I understand Warhammer just has a bigger community. So it's like, again, it's not a 1-for-1. And I'll state again, I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to kill the hobby. I'm just saying I don't know what the damage is. You know, I don't know what it could be. You know, all the people who refuse to try out Pathfinder because various big YouTube channels keep saying it's shit. You know, like, why would you? Again, you're sitting in the store looking at sponges. Someone tells you this sponge is better, you're gonna be like, yeah, sure, because you just don't care. You know, when you're talking to a general audience, like, it's not even about depth. People don't even have to watch the content to get put off by trying something else. They just see 100 videos saying this is bad, and they might just not try it just because they keep seeing people talk about it that way. You know,
or assume that like, that's the community you got. That seems annoying.
so,
This is what I do. A lot of like, these people seem annoying, I'm not gonna play it.
I think
it's not it's not a 1-to-1 at all. It's just like, on a larger scale, yeah. Also, I don't know, I'm always of the opinion for a lot of stuff, it's like, I think shit'll just be fine. I think shit will work out.
I mean, and again, that's not, I'm not saying that's not,
I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying, like, you know, like the question of, is there going to be potential damage? Or like, what could it be? My thought is immediately, I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal.
And it might stunt growth. Who knows? It's just, I don't know. So that's kind of my general thoughts. And actually, this is a very poignant. So Muffin Hydra has posted here. So I'm following through the Twitter thread, and I kind of understand the concern. There's a difference between diversification and balkanization. And while we're certainly having a strong concentration around 5e that might be unhealthy, splintering the TTRPG scene too much might move it away from mainstream, and making TTRPGs more niche again shouldn't be desirable. So, like, yeah, in a broad stroke, in a very unrealistic situation, sure, but that's not actually what would or could happen. D&D's not going anywhere, so there's no fracture, you know what I mean? Like, the general premise of the argument is silly, which is why people keep jumping on it. Like, even giving this person the best interpretation, like with the most reason behind it, it's stating that people making systems outside of 5th edition or the like is damaging TTRPGs, which is just factually untrue.
Yeah, the specific idea of, because there is more options, it is bad. Because, like, I get the idea. I think, honestly, that interpretation that you posted, Muffin Hydra, is one of the better, like, best faith reads of it. The main bit is, I just don't think it's going to have that level of, like, I guess, balkanization and diversity, it just breaking apart like that in the community. Mainly because it also reads like a person who approaches it all like that you can have one. You can't be a fan of all of those things. When then I'm reading the games that like they're referencing, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of like all of those. Like I can consider myself a fan of all the games you mentioned. Then what does that mean? What does that do? Because like it's an argument from the perspective that you either play one game, but like you can't have multiple. What are you talking about? It's like, you can. I don't know I don't know. You could enjoy multiple things at the same time. It's ridiculous. That's my issue with it.
There's also zero evidence that that other TTRPGs are actually taking from D&D sales.
No, the amount of people I know, including myself, who buy like tabletop games and own 5th edition, you're like, 5e, kind of cringe, and then they're like, yeah, I don't play it anymore. Or specifically, a friend of mine that's coming over to play, like to join a vampire game, who she's very into, is like, I run 5e and like play 5e because it's what everyone else does, and like getting a group together for a game I want to play, like Pathfinder, is a lot harder. He is a Pathfinder 2e fan, thankfully.
This whole thing, the whole premise around this is ludicrous because there's zero evidence showing that anything is actually taking away from 5e. This is just like the Hogwarts, the new Hogwarts game, whatever, situation where, you know what, bad publicity sometimes is just good publicity. D&D is getting way more shown in like public eyes because of a lot of this stuff. I mean, the very idea of splintering must involve the removal of D&D somehow, in some way, which is just, and I'm not saying that this is what you think, Muffin Hydrant. I'll make that clear. I'm just saying that, like, even with this very gracious interpretation, is so unrealistic and unfounded that it is a completely ludicrous point.
Even as like the example that we sometimes give, like if D&D just disappears and dies off the market, is like the hyperbolic. We're giving the most like extreme example, because like if a tabletop game, like if D&D went out of business, 5e isn't going anywhere. I doubt that like people would stop playing 5th edition. I imagine if Wizards of the Coast just said, all right, no new content, we're done, peace, Magic the Gathering only now. I have a feeling for like the next decade or so, 5e is still going strong because of how much of a culture of homebrew has been built around it.
I
like
disagree, actually.
I mean, it exists long enough with no one else, with like the main company not releasing content for it. I just don't think it's going to die out. I think people are fine with like the core book.
For the people who are already playing it, sure.
Yeah, but if it's not gaining new people, then it's going to spread to like, still it's going to spread to like friends or like kids or other things like that.
Not really, especially when like if no stores sold any of that stuff or anything like that, like even if Kobold Press jumped on it, right? They don't have the money to ship these books out to all these stores, or they would do it with their own content.
I'm not saying that's like, oh man, the game, like it's not making any money, not selling. I still think it's going to be very popular because like you got to know one guy who has a core book and you're fine. Like you don't need a core book to play most games anyways. Like that you can just play it or have all the resources online. Like, I could play Pathfinder with Archive of Nethys and really dedicated group. I don't need the book for it. So, like, it's not going to kill the popularity.
It is. Because the thing is,
I don't get that.
So, here's the raw information, like, factual information, that most of what happens when it comes to people getting invested in a hobby is opportunity. It's seeing something and having the option to actually play it. Whether it's someone receives the book as a gift, whether it's someone finds it in a store and decides they want to try it out. Most people get engaged with a thing due to opportunity. And it's not very typically, as someone who's played TT, let's just take out anecdotal evidence, right? So, in general, when it comes to marketing or the success of products in general, it is about what is there. Because, like, all right, who in their right mind talks about Kroger products, like Kroger brand products, right? From stores. Who shares that information about it? But you know why they keep selling it? Because people keep buying it, because it's there. And it's typically a little cheaper. And so, like, things that we don't think are popular are actually genuinely popular because a lot of people buy it. The main reason why people don't think 4E was popular was because people who were in the hobby, who were enjoying it, weren't getting the books. But the problem was 4E still outsold the rest of the market because general people were still buying it and just not telling anyone about it. So if you were to cut the tap, if you were to cut off D&D as a company, D&D would just slowly die out because people's interests will naturally wane. And without easy ways of getting people to come back in and revitalize the hobby, as happens all the time, because we hear all the time of people who are like, I haven't played in like 10 years, you know? The opportunity just goes away, and the hobby slowly dies when no one produces anything around it. And D&D, a lot of what makes D&D actually as successful as it is not even D&D products. So you can't even say it's the people who are playing games, running games, who are really perpetuating it. It's the movies. It's showing up in TV shows. It's all kinds of things. So yeah, you can't just kill the company and remove the product and expect it to keep going. That's just not how it works.
I'm not saying that it's going to go on forever. I just think it'll last longer than anything else. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that crazy situation happens, and then it does. It will slowly decline because less and less people like that are getting into it. But you're also still having people where they're like, I still got the books, and like inviting people to play, or they're still doing all this
and
to
it won't
run
be
it,
enough.
and it's going to die in like a lot longer than other games would, than like Pathfinder. If that happened, if Pathfinder went down completely, and then like all that, 100%, it is petering out quite quickly.
Well, let's establish first, what do you consider it dying? And then we can agree on...
No one talking about it. It was moved, the attention is shifted completely to other games.
So then that is, I mean, then I guess yeah, but then what's the relevance to like the conversation?
I don't know. That's where I've been discussing the whole time. I've been saying like that from that point of view, that it'll take a while for D&D to not be the top dog, to like fall out of any sort of public relevance, because I think the fan base around it is big enough that will carry it and continue to do stuff. I think even if 5e like, you know, stops producing content, live plays and all these other fan YouTube stuff will still be made. I don't think that like Puffington Forest is going to stop making D&D videos. Like, I don't think that's going to just completely halt. And then I think it'll last for a while because it has enough weight behind it. But then if another game, like if a smaller game did the same thing, completely went kaput, books aren't being sold anymore anywhere, then it's going to disappear from relevance completely, like quicker. That's just, D&D is a giant that's big enough to carry itself as like a perpetual motion machine. Because also there's just so much. See, and
it's when you use terms like that, like carrying itself, like to what levels of success? Because I like if D&D died completely, you know what? I very can easily see within 1 to 2 years the current population dropping in half.
I don't know, man. Like they're already not dropping new shit, so like I don't see the.
They still drop new things all the time.
Like an adventure book that people then like buy.
It's not necessarily D&D the TTRPG related. There's the new Minecraft mod.
That's where I'm talking
from. There's
from.
Baldur's Gate 3, because without, like, if we cut D&D, Baldur's Gate 3 could not have been made.
Oh, it couldn't have been made, but it already has been made. So we're talking from like the point of now.
But nothing else like that, because Baldur's Gate, as great as a game as it's going to be, is in a year guaranteed going to have less active players, like 50% less or more missing active players at any one time.
It's gonna have less active players, but
and a game like D&D that requires so much time and effort to actually set up sessions to do is going to drop even more when people aren't getting as interested because nothing else is out like being attempted to be made, you know? Like it, like when you're saying no one will talk about it, sure, but like it will be a lot less people than I think you're imagining.
It'll be like, yeah, it's not as extreme. I'm not like going super extreme. The main point of this is that like D&D is big enough that if it completely just stopped producing anything, any new content, they just paused it and like, all right, not doing it for a bit. It's going to carry itself longer in like public discourse, in attention and popularity for much longer than anything else could.
I mean, in TTRPGs, I guess.
Yes,
sure.
in I'm only talking about TTRPGs.
Sure. Then what's the point?
I don't remember the point because I all I remember is saying what I think is a pretty normal statement, and then be like, it turned into this where I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
What we were originally talking about is if D&D suddenly went away, that it would actually be devastating to the TTRPG field. And you brought this argument up that it could perpetuate itself, which, like, perpetuate to what degree? It would die slowly, you know? That, like,
Yeah.
TTRPGs would just stop kind of being a general thing. People would play them, sure. People would be talking about them, sure. But the number would be decreasing rapidly every year.
It is inherently a bad thing if D&D dies, because I mean, we've talked about like that even on TableTalk, which it is we need the big one to get all the cool ones, to get the people into the cool ones. I also, it's tabletop's just like a nice fun little thing that kind of carries itself, and it's a nice piece of content where you can buy it and then you own it completely, which is what I think they're trying to alter their business model for, because it doesn't make that much money. But I don't know. My own point is that just D&D can be self-popular for a while. They could just pause and still make, or still be in the public eye.
And
I don't remember
I'm
what
saying,
brought me
like,
on this point, but
and I'm saying
it's not
that,
important.
Okay. Well,
It's not
I'm
important
not
to
trying
carry
to
it on
beat
if
you
I don't
down in an
remember it.
argument. I'm just saying that I disagree with the point that, like, D&D would remain relevant, you know? Like, I'm not saying no one will talk about it. I'm just saying its relevancy would drop pretty dramatically because, like I said, the biggest games out there who've had the most players at any one time eventually kind of fall to a general obscurity where people start. It's like Skyrim, right? People still talk about Skyrim, but like how relevant, like how many people are actually playing Skyrim nowadays? You know,
I'm actually curious what the. Let me look that up.
it's a genuinely interesting question.
I feel like a lot, especially after this. Like at least specifically right now. That's my guess. Right now, there's been a spike in Skyrim because of all the anti-Starfield stuff that's been happening. Oh
Not
my
bad.
god, Baldur's Gate 3 has
Hypothesis.
204,000 players right now. Holy shit.
That's crazy.
I mean, my partner's right behind me playing it, so I know one of
It's
them.
a good game. No one's
It is
saying
very
otherwise.
good. Currently, let's see. The concurrent players is 22,000.
That's very small compared to what it's been in the past. Not a insignificant number, sure, but in the wide scheme of things.
Oh, I was right. Fuck yeah, it has spiked very recently since all the anti-Starfield stuff. Oh my god. I was right. Yeah, because a lot of it started in like early December where it was around 18,000, and then it started to peak, and it peaked recently as in like January 1st, 33,000. It has peaked because of that. That's cool. I expected as much because also it's because a lot of mod projects got canceled for Starfield because they're like, this game sucks and we want to design it for a game we enjoy.
Yeah, which is sad.
Which is very,
I don't think
very sad.
Starfield was that bad, but it definitely
wasn't
was
that bad, but it was like
as big as I think what people wanted.
There are issues in it, which also one thing I can definitely see is Starfield had no internal design document to like link anything together, and it does honestly feel really lame to explore what feels like I am hopping room to room to room with nothing linking it but a loading screen.
Well, that's not what they wanted, but No, that's an old argument at this point.
That's what
Like,
it
it
feels
has
like.
plenty of
Reason why I did not play
excitable
it.
things to investigate when you go to the actual sites.
It does, but it does feel really boring. Where it's just like the real exploration is me clicking on a map. I don't feel very like I'd rather explore like I guess like a world you can just walk somewhere in Skyrim. I enjoy that
Right.
significantly
That's,
more.
I think, the
However,
disconnect.
Starfield cities are like fantastic. It's just like I don't know, like did you explore some of the main cities in Starfield that much?
Sorry.
Like
Kind of, yeah. I was reading. Sorry.
no, no worries.
I mean, there, to a degree, there's a lot of things. It's like exploring cities or towns in prior games. You know, they always have a lot of kind of layered things, and it feels a lot more layered. I think, like the first city you go to, there's like the undercity and the upper city part. But I don't know. I
don't know if that's just a me thing, because when I was trying to like when I was going to the cities for quests, I found myself like really like I don't know the layout of the city. I don't know what this stuff kind of like looks like in my mind eye. I'm not just walking around and like seeing what houses are available and what's open, because and then I thought about it and I kind of think it's because the game conditioned me to like travel is through a fast travel menu only. So I just was less willing and like less wanting to explore. And it's stuff like that where I'm like, man, I wish I could just like walk and then find things that aren't just like fast travelable map hips. I don't know. I understand why people got disillusioned with it.
I understand the disconnect there. It's the urge to find random explorable things, I think, is what people are getting most frustrated with when everything feels like go to this fast travel point, like you said, and explore here kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm seeing little like basically rooms. It's like I'm exploring a big house, not like a world.
Yeah. I mean, like, I had a lot of fun, but I also did a lot of like the base building stuff and getting resources and finding out like, ooh, this tile has these resources. This looks like a good site to build. There's these creatures. I liked researching and doing all that kind of stuff. That's where I had my most fun, most hours.
I had a lot of fun doing that too, and then when I got invested in shipbuilding and realized how fucking lame shipbuilding is,
yeah,
I stopped.
There's a lot of stuff that feels so unimpactful when it comes to what you can get for your ship. It's like, I got this new thing. I don't know what changed. Nothing feels like it changed because the ship combat is kind of boring.
Yes, and then the other bit that annoyed me was how the ship internal layout is designed to like I can't just make doors to rooms. So like I wanted to design this really like kind of like sleek many rooms. Like I had every room have a room, and then I go in it and it turns out that like the only way to get to these workshops is to no clip. It's like, oh, okay, fucking cool, I guess. And then immediately being taken out of it because of that. And it kind of, I guess, is the main bit where a lot of those systems at play. Some are fun, like the gunplay and the combat is fun. But then you're also like, some of this feels like it was designed in a vacuum and then taped together. Which apparently is how it was actually designed.
Yeah, I agree, Muffin. I think playing into the New Game Plus idea that they were 100%. Going with would have been a lot more fun.
The New Game Plus concept is dope. It's really cool.
So, I don't know, but I guess kind of to bring things back around to what we were talking about before, the TTRPG industry is in a very interesting place right now where we're getting a bigger casual core, which is keeping the hobby afloat at this point, because before casual core kind of became a thing, most of like Lancer would have been much smaller than it is today, no doubt. People wouldn't be really looking into TTRPGs. The thing is like, as someone who has grown up through the various kind of eras, besides I wasn't alive during the Satanic Panic part, but I was kind of getting into it like post Satanic Panic. when it was still in the era of, it was the nerdy thing. It was the trope of the nerds would get into their basement, dress up, and be very socially awkward and very kind of non-sociable in general. And it was always kind of the a bad thing. It was kind of portrayed as like
Yeah.
you were unpopular when you did this
I
kind of
I
stuff.
grew up specifically in that bit of having the media have that be like the secondhand trope bit, and then watched it grow into actually what is really interesting. I don't know if you directly saw this too. There's the period in like right before the D&D Renaissance and like during it. Like 2016 is, I guess, like that's the considered year for like tabletop blowing up and like becoming a lot more general.
Yeah,
Uh
generally.
like a little before that and a little after, a lot of shows and stuff started to change. Not even with Stranger Things, to have like they still played into the joke of the nerdy basement, but it was twisted to be more like lighthearted and fun and not putting down tabletop. It's the situation is using tabletop to be funny. Like there's a Key and Peele skit that is literally that. It's like, you know, the nerds playing D&D. He invites his friend who's like a stereotypical gangster who starts going like, where the bitches at? And then like the whole end of the joke, like it's not like haha nerds are dumb, because the whole bit is like the other players are very much like hell yeah, let's lean into like this whole like let's get the bitches, let's drink in this tabletop game. The gangster takes over the table and then is like playing D&D very proficiently, but is, you know, still in his weird framework of playing it. Or like the community D&D episode where it's pretty positive to D&D, it's just using it as a framework where it started to shift and be like, all right, we're going to use this nerdy imagery and like, but we're going to sell it to not be, but we're not putting down people who play D&D.
Yeah,
Because it started to get popular in those circles.
Was it Parks and Rec? There was one very popular sitcom.
I think it is Community. That's the
Community.
directly the Community episode, which is a great episode, by the way. That episode's really fun, and is also because like Dan Harmon is 100% like he's a big D&D fan.
Yeah,
he like was playing D&D at the time.
Yeah. Okay. So 2009.
Yep.
Yeah. That was Community. I think was one of the strangely like not a kickstart, but it was strangely like that softening of the idea. And now that I know that Dan Harmon was involved, yeah, I never watched it. Apparently, my niece is named after a character from that show.
I mean, Community is really fucking good. It is fantastic. I'm not a fan of Dan Harmon that much, especially as of late.
No, well, yeah, I'm not a particular fan of Dan Harmon either.
Yeah, the first like four seasons of Community. That's it. 5 and 6, is genuinely fantastic. It's a great show. Don't need to watch more than that. But it is good. It's very good. And that episode's great. And I just looked it up. The Key and Peele sketch I'm talking about was like 2012. So like that around that era, it started to shift. But it still happened in like because I remember around a show that came out around the same time, my sister watching it, and they were like, we need to find a hacker. It was like Pretty Little Liars or like a show like that.
Yeah.
We need to find a hacker. How do we do it? And then they find a guy who plays D&D. And that's how they know that he's a good hacker.
Yeah.
Because he's a nerd. But like you still have that, of course, but it feels like it started to shift as like the people making those shows started to like, oh, we play these and we enjoy it, and they have these writing and directing positions now.
Yeah, I think definitely, and I think that's a big part of it, is a lot of people who grew up in the D&D era kind of finally getting some say-so in the various Hollywood scenes, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it definitely, as someone who's kind of gone through all the various eras, like I said, the only era I didn't actively live through was the Satanic Panic part. And from what I've heard from people in that era, it wasn't even that bad. It was just something that people talked about, like violence in video games.
It was a lot of stuff that would be like, oh yeah, my family did this. It was like, again, it was like anecdotal evidence of people mentioning stuff that's happened directly to them, like their extreme religious mom throws their shit away, or another mom is like, yeah, I know our church is being really weird that you like D&D, you can keep it, just don't talk about it.
Right. And now, like, during this era, like the various eras, one of the biggest periods before the Common Core was like the 90s when we got a lot of World of Darkness came out, Deadlands came out. We had a lot of really good, like interesting TTRPGs in a space where D&D was still kind of king, but king from like a like the president of Greece, kind of level. Like not a big world power player. Guy kind of just lives on the street like everyone else. Like people who played D&D also just played a variety of other games. It just wasn't that kind of big, A lot of people still had their preferences, sure, but it just wasn't as big of a field as when Common Core came out, and then D&D got massive, way bigger than it ever had gotten before, And a lot of the other TTRPGs have been only playing catch-up. And to be fair, since the OGL debacle, a lot of games have been making some pretty decent ground. But it also means that with everything going on, with D&D kind of attracting a much bigger core audience, we're getting more people who are interested and more people who want to do it their way, which is what people are getting upset about. And VTTs bringing a level of accessibility is frustrating to people who are upset when they see a game on a shelf that is just very much not their way of playing the game. The number of people
weird,
who get
yeah.
angry at seeing thirsty sword lesbians on a bookshelf in the TTRPG section, and they're like, it's ruining our games. Back in the 90s, no games came out like this bullshit.
Yeah, it's very weird because I feel like a lot of those people, if you also talk to them long enough, would start having the opinions of like, we don't get to decide that. The audience and the market decides what things are popular.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, but that shouldn't exist. That shouldn't be on the market.
Right. Even though people are buying it.
Yeah, exactly. It's people are fans of it. Man, that one always gets me. I also feel like some of it has to be because I think you hit it early on, the bit of, well, the people who would have it be more accessible to learn the game are the people in their eyes that bullied them for being like that and playing tabletop games. So it's that bit of, no, you stay out of my group. But also I feel some of it has to be like that mentality of, well, I struggled to get into it, so I feel like you should too. It's only fair.
Yeah. And
which is like, no, the real response is, it was a little difficult for me to learn this game. Let me make sure other people have the easiest method possible so they can just enjoy it as quick as possible. Like that gaming elitist buddy. I remember that. I remember you telling me how you were avoiding him.
Yeah, I had to hide on
annoying.
Steam.
Yeah, I remember that time. And then also that bit is like, it would have been more fun if you're just like, oh, I struggled with these things. Let me show you how it's done. Let me get this done so we can just have fun. That's what you want to get to.
I mean, hell, even if he just said, okay, I'm going to go work on a project over here and you can just do whatever, I would have been happy with that. Just to know that he was actively playing the game with me.
Not spectating you. That is weird. I didn't know about that part. I just knew that he was very much like, because I remember the conversation about Stellaris, because I think it was when you were first getting into Stellaris.
Probably.
When you were like, it's really annoying, and I was like, I play a lot of Stellaris, and he's not explaining you the concepts of Stellaris. That game is complicated.
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff, and with the whole Ben Riggs post, this whole thing is funny because I told Alex, it's the birth of a new age of Grognard. Someone who thinks that 5e is the end all be all, and he's gonna remember this golden age of D&D where everyone jumped into the community, everyone was making stuff for D&D 5e, and it felt fun. It felt like there's a community. It felt like everyone was really behind D&D and pushing it forward. And then suddenly D&D did some bad stuff, and people just gave up on it without giving it another chance. And
I don't like this. This is a little real.
Yeah, right. And now it's just like, and now people are playing other games. Our community is falling apart. The people I used to game with are now playing Pathfinder or Lancer.
You
And
know, the part that also kills me for this, because I don't know if this is a controversial opinion, but you know, when I see grognards out in the wild and they're talking about some games that were big in the '90s, I can kind of respect it, you know, because I see the game and I'm like, the game you're repping has some merits. If that was being told to me unironically and someone's repping for like 5e like that with that hard, I don't know, man. I can't take that as seriously because it's 5th edition D&D. I don't know if that's elitist like thought process at all. That's my immediate thought of like it feels more embarrassing somehow. And I
yeah.
also really want to see what games that they're complaining that it's not like 5th edition, because whenever I hear this game, it's not like 5th edition, my usual thought is, oh hell yeah, good. I mean, you mean it has rules and actually like gives the GM like the stuff they need to run a game without having to make it all themselves? Good.
It's not solely TTRPG. Well, yeah, obviously I was speaking as a parody of
Yeah,
the individual in
it's
question.
just picture it's like 10, 20 years down the line. The same amount of time that what like I think 20 years is a fair bit because that's what most grognards are talking about the 90s. So like you have that length of time and then it's the people here and now that are getting into 5th edition D&D. That is a really funny thought, just switching it
Yeah.
around. Back
Just
in my day, we had open narrative play. It's all meat grinder combat now. It's not like what I knew. Imagine it switches. It
I mean,
flips to
yeah,
what it used to be in the 90s.
there's also the conversation of trends and what can happen, you know. But you know, a conversation for another table talk maybe. The possible futures, but like this individual, I'm reading some more of the tweet here. He's very upset that Matt Colville, who's making his own game right now, he's just like, but Matt Colville used to be like, he used to do so much good work for D&D. Now that he's making his own game, he's not gonna make any content for D&D.
I liked that was the guy. That Matt Colville, who's someone I see very mixed like responses of, and has videos that I think are either like, oh, that was a decent video, to like, I didn't like this. Just like that's the
Yeah.
guy that you're referencing for this. There are other pretty big, pretty popular D&D YouTubers that are still doing it or starting to branch out, and Matt Colville's the one you bring up.
And I mean, it's just right now what Ben Riggs is suffering from and what a lot of people are suffering from is the idea that what they love is not going to be getting the attention it used to get. It's not going to be getting produced as much as it used to, and they're going to go into stores and find a harder time getting the stuff that they want to get. And to be fair, there's some truth in that. It's like Pathfinder First Edition. Pathfinder First Edition versus Second Edition are two very different games, and Pathfinder First Edition is not getting anything else. And this is actually further evidence towards my, if you suddenly cut off D&D, would it be self-perpetuating? Pathfinder First Edition had a very heavy and very like dedicated fan base. Thoroughly so. We don't hear anything from them anymore. They still exist. Yeah, there's people who are still doing first edition games. So people are still starting first edition games. But in the handful of years, 3 years since Pathfinder Second Edition came out, you know, we just don't hear anything. There's no major content creators.
They find your comment section.
Yeah, that's the only place they can go. They have to find refuges, because, you know, and like if D&D got cut, the same thing kind of happens. Other people, the people who are in the hobby might find other things, sure, but it'll slowly die down as it gets harder and harder to find games in a hobby that's already hard to find games, you know? It's like, yeah, it'll never go away. There's still people who play AD&D, the second edition of D&D. I still see people talking about AD&D, you know?
I always hear the rules described, and I'm like, that sounds like a fucking nightmare to play. Like, what are you enjoying?
The people have these ideas of like how markets are, like how things work, but general popularity, general like public consensus does actually need to stem off of monoliths. It's like vines on a tree, you know. you need a tree with a pretty thick base to support the many vines that a hobby produces. When you cut that tree down, it becomes substantially harder, and it becomes way more difficult for things to flourish when they don't have something to grip off of. And like, this is not me advocating for 5e's success. I think 5e is fine. If anything, I just want 5e to continue as it is, slowly getting worse with every year.
Yeah. I want people to know.
So that everything else seems much more appealing year by year.
I think that's has to be the fate, because like I right now it's still turning, like it's profitable enough that they can continue with what they're doing. The bit that we'll know that shit is up, and this is what I've been waiting for, like, to come out. The part where I feel like we're gonna see, and it's like the warning sign that like, uh-oh, D&D might be a little bit in trouble, is when they start just suddenly like, hey guys, we're releasing new content for 5th edition. Here's a giant new like rule book. Here's an errata for the rules to fix some of the problems. Like, when we start getting batch content like that, where they're really shifting their business model, that's how we know. But I do think the most realistic thing is like that it is going to slowly peter out through like the business model it has, and just start to fall away as people are like, well, I'm gonna go to this company because they actually release stuff and I feel like I'm treated well by being a fan. It's like, man, but Pathfinder releases all this stuff in a really cool way and pretty often, and they're very active in like the online community. Like, I feel like I can talk to the designers in a cool way. They release all the stuff for free on a site instead of trying to get me to subscribe to all these like things.
Yeah, it's despite everything, right? Despite the rise of doomsaying and all that kind of stuff, I think tabletop is still moving generally in a good direction. I think we're still moving in the right direction. My concern is mostly just, what will this change? What will this do? It's like getting a bad start, you know, in a video game. You probably can recover, but sometimes it takes extra effort. I just don't know. Personally, all I can do is try to advocate for more games, understanding people's perspectives, and making the TTRPG space a much more inclusive space. And then not inclusive like a lot of people seem to demify, where inclusive seems to only refer to people who are like LGBTQ or whatever, but inclusive for everyone, actually. Someone comes at me and is angry that Pathfinder First Edition isn't making content anymore, I'll sympathize. I'll sit here and be like, yeah, I understand. That's incredibly rough. They don't owe you your game, but I do feel bad for you that your game is not being produced. That sucks, legitimately. And, you know, for the D&D 5e people who have their experiences and like the game, yeah, I'm going to advocate for you to enjoy D&D 5e as much as you want, to be hopeful that your game will get better, or to just value what the game has already brought to you. Sure, you know, everyone can come here. I want content that anyone can watch. In the past, I've definitely been a lot more, not angry at D&D. I'm more angry at people in D&D than anything, which forces me into counterpoint with actual, like, attacking D&D because that's what they're attacking on our side. Like, they're attacking Pathfinder, so I attack D&D. I definitely want to move further away from that and just say, like, hey, you know, you want to play Candela Obscura? Great. I can find the good points in Candela Obscura, and while it's not necessarily my kind of game, I can understand why people would prefer to play Blades in the Dark, but I can also justify people playing Candela Obscura because they are just different games, and we've already discussed the actual differences in how you would actually change, you know, like, what, in order to play a game like Candela Obscura, you actually couldn't play Blades in the Dark because there's just a lot more stuff in the way to get there. That doesn't make Blades in the Dark a bad game. That just makes Blades in the Dark a game of its own, like many of the Forge in the Darkness kind of games.
It doesn't make Blades in the Dark a bad game. It makes Blades in the Dark Blades in the Dark. It's
Yeah,
something else. It's a different thing.
it's a different thing. Just like Thirsty Sword Lesbians isn't making TTRPGs woke, because you know what? People who really like D&D might not like Thirsty Sword Lesbians anyway. It's just kind of made for the people who would enjoy that content. We'll probably end up playing Thirsty Sword Lesbians at some point on the channel. Just because I'm actually just super curious at this point. I keep seeing it. And
I'm curious what the game is like.
like, it's such an outrageous game title. I have to know what it's
Exactly.
about. I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to like it, but
I mean,
I
if it's
wanna
a
at
rules
least know.
layer, I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious what the game is, because like, talk about getting an immediate like, I want to know what the fuck's in that book. Just seeing a title. It's
Yeah,
a good title for it's perfect to like grab attention on a shelf.
there's a lot of games out there right now that I currently want to get, like Household, recently introduced to. That game looks
Yeah,
very interesting.
it
There's
looks pretty cool.
there's a lot, and so this channel is in a lot of ways going to be pushing to bring as many different fandoms under its banner as possible, to talk and extol the benefits of playing other games, and to justify everyone's style of play, not to necessarily uphold their arguments, but to at the very least give them a reason, or get like to validate their standpoint by saying, I understand you like so and so game. You know, I understand it's fun. No one's saying it's not. Just please stop attacking other people for enjoying their games that they like. Because honestly, like, that's what a lot of TTRPG controversy boils down to. Like, especially like the MCDM stuff. Crazy, the Matt Colville game that's coming out. The MCDM is not its actual name. They're still workshopping it. But it's the Matt
Is there a
Colville.
controversy around it?
Yes.
I didn't hear about this.
Mostly because Matt Colville used to be a big D&D content creator, and now he's making his own game, and so people are upset at that fact. And then they're seeing what he's doing, and people are not liking that controversy, I guess, in the sense of people are actually talking about it at all, you know.
People are just upset that he's moving away from D&D.
There's that. Yeah.
Okay, because like, yeah, that sounds like a pretty non-issue. Just like, his content style's changing. It's like, yeah, other YouTubers do that. Like, that's super fair. I'm surprised. Like, some people think that like these people, they'll always make D&D content for me.
Yeah, we're not saying it's 5e with oh no, it's not just 5e with a coat of paint. Yeah, we're not saying that.
Yeah, the people that are I mean, specifically the guy that
Oh no, I see. Oh
thread,
no, it's not just
he's
5e
upset
with
about
coat of
that.
paint. Yeah,
Yeah,
I see.
he's upset that it isn't, because then it's killing the tabletop industry.
Yeah, because we're not playing D&D. Like, again, I understand what he feels. I understand that feeling, that like the very thick and strong community that he felt was there before is going away. But that's the thing. Like, what people feel is a thing is very rarely the truth of the matter. Like,
There was a great point that I saw as a thread that was like specifically that idea of being like, if your only exposure to tabletop is through D&D 5e, I get how you could feel like this, but just know that like this isn't the case, and it's a lot bigger of a thing than just one game, even if it is the most popular.
Yeah, I mean, like, tabletop is always been a huge. I would not be in tabletop if tabletop wasn't at least somewhat popular. I had to play with other people at one point, you know, back in my LARPing days, you know. And I understand. It's like the whole, again, I have said this before, but the whole concept that 4E did terribly, when honestly it was still the best-selling game on the market for its era.
I always love those arguments, because it is exactly, I love it when it's like, this thing sold horribly. It's like, we have numbers to prove that you're wrong. What are you talking about?
Kind of. We don't actually have numbers. We have reports from people in Paizo and in D&D, in Wizards of the Coast, who worked on it, who know. Especially because a lot of people who worked in D&D 4E moved over to Paizo, actually. So
That's true.
we have those kind of reports, because it's not openly traded Wizards of the Coast. So obviously
I
we don't
guess
have the numbers.
just Warhammer stays winning because I see those arguments all the time with Warhammer, and then it's like, here is their company performance and revenue to say you're wrong. Because there's the really big conspiracy theory that Age of Sigmar is hemorrhaging money and they're losing money constantly. And that is definitely why every month we get a genuinely really cool Age of Sigmar drop. Because they're not making money off of it.
And plastic clicks. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's there's a lot of information gaps. And that's the thing is it doesn't matter whether there are information or gaps or not, because people are going to make those arguments anyway. It's like all the people who said President Trump did like all these really amazing things, or that so many terrible things are happening under Biden currently, when, you know, you could just look at the facts. You can just look at the data. You can look at the economy data and everything like that and prove otherwise. People don't care. And it's the same thing in this, like any other hobby, is people just don't care. They feel something and they're going to put 100% behind what they feel.
And some people do just want to feel upset and feel mad for some reason.
And the same thing is for like it generally what I'm talking about is I am trying my best to keep as grounded as a position as possible, to not let the way I feel about certain things change my viewpoints. When I say I'm concerned about something, it comes from a situation of like looking at the circumstances. I don't know how this will come out. I'm not going to claim it's one way or another. And it's the same thing for when I'm like when I say TTRPGs are going to come into a new era. Yeah, TTRPGs are going to come into a new era soon because of lots of facts you can find online. It's not a feeling, it's just things you can see. You can go to the various companies, you can talk to various people, you can look at VTT charts and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's a growing interest, and when you see more and more content creators who are not in TTRPGs start doing TTRPG stuff, I mean, when content creators start doing tabletop stuff, even knowing that live plays don't do well, that means that it's hitting the core, like, general audience.
Yeah, it's very dependent on like some of it, especially nowadays, apparently. Because this is actually, it was such a cool talk. I referenced it last time. The really good podcast episode with Zach Oyama from Dimension 20, talking with like Ludwig's crew about, especially about the actual play they're starting up. Mm-hmm. In that a lot of their business metrics when it comes to it is like, this show is going to be a success, be like a really decent monetary success, because they're already monetarily successful. It's like, it'll do well because of that. Like, and I think Moist Criticals will do really well because he has a giant audience. They're gonna start watching because it's him, not because it's like tabletop initially. Or the people are like, oh, two things I like are now together. And that's what a lot of the comments on their like Zach Oyama podcast episode is, oh my god, I love D&D and I love this podcast. They're gonna do it at the same time? Whoa. Me, I'm like, I'm not gonna watch that. I like these guys, I'm just not gonna watch it.
Yeah, and you know, that's the thing, is like, a lot of people are going to see that. That's also an approach I think I need to start taking more, the goofy approach, because that's what sells a lot of people in TTRPG, strangely, to me anyway, is look at the random shit I can do in this game, and do whatever. Like Moist Critical's character, who's half rhino, half slime, who can randomly talk to an inanimate object once per game, and jumps into someone's bloodstream and kills a guy by telling his heart to take a break. That's really funny. That is what people are interested in. That's what people want TTRPGs to be. This silly, ridiculous, kind of breaks the whole idea of a game sometimes, ideas and concepts, That's what people want, and that's an approach I think I want to start taking, is telling people wacky things they can do rather than necessarily mechanically interesting or whatever kind of things.
Yeah, people want to know the like, because like you could explain to them, say for example, like, yeah, you know, you could play this really cool mech and it can like once per turn it can actually come back to life and it'll like do all these cool things. When instead you can be like, yeah, this is the Lich. The Lich drink deep and descend and like go through all of this like temporal resurrection. Just explain it in a way that is the vibe, not the rule, and people are into it. People want to know the idea of something they can do,
I'm gonna
rather
have,
than like what they actually can do.
when I'm talking about Lancer for my like promo video, I'm gonna have that meme of Mo throwing Barney out of the bar, and it's just Lich getting thrown out of the bar, and then the next his ability that brings him back from being dead.
It is
the next
literally
turn.
that
It's
is
literally
exactly
that.
what it is. It'll be fun because like the one part of the video I need to finish scripting is I think it'll be we got to collab on the specific ones we mentioned, because if you can at least explain them even mechanically with like you do your Lance video, I do mine, then like I provide the vibe, then you tell them how it actually works or something like that, because I'm planning on like explaining, here's the Caliban, look how cool it is, by the way, you see this giant mech, it just shoulder checks it and it moves backwards, which is the I think one of the funniest.
I will do my video and you can do your video.
Yeah, we'll do both of our videos, and I think we'll like just let me know when you're working on it, because then I'll actually record a thing mentioning yours for like more of the video to actually like, if you want to look into it deeper, here's another video on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna do a review which will be a lot more in depth as well, but like for
100%
getting people into it, I think like providing vibes and providing the concepts, the conceptually fun parts of the game are more important than actually establishing like what actually is happening.
The amount of Lancer fans I have made by simply scrolling through CompCon with them.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh my god, and it's like, this is so cool, and I'm like, wait, I'm not done. And then I show them another thing. Like, that is the amount of people I have made now, like, so much that I get a random message is like, hey man, what was that like cool robot mech game you were talking about? It's like, oh, Lancer, here you go. Here's the stuff you need.
Yeah. And I want to do that. I want to do that for other games as well. But we've run out of time. I have to actually go and get my car now.
I do too. I have someone coming over soon.
Anything you want to leave us with before we head out?
Yeah. If you are into lore content for mainly Warhammer 40k and also Vampire, I've made a few. Go check out my channel. It is Glue Boy. I put out a video recently, a live stream and a video, talking about Primarch tier list, which are the objectively best Primarchs in 40k, which I have a lot of thoughts about. Except this one is me actually giving my real opinions with real like points to the lore, not just making a jokey based on vibes thing. So yeah, go check out my channel. It's linked in Cam's stuff, and I have a video today that's a cut down version of a big 2-hour Primarch tier list live stream I did. Which I'm gonna do more live stream content in the future because my audience apparently wants it and likes it. So
awesome. And I think tomorrow I'm gonna release the why you should play Pathfinder 2nd Edition video.
Oh hell yeah!
I think I'm gonna try out that style of content. It might not be tomorrow. It might come out Saturday. We'll see. It depends on what the editing is. I haven't done it, so I have to do it, and then I hopefully can boil down to a method of editing and production that works very cleanly. But yeah, hopefully a new content trend coming out sometime in the next couple days. So
I'm excited to see what you experiment with in this, like, these few months.
But with that, that's going to be it for us. Thank you all so much for watching, and I guess we'll go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.